Fallout 4. It's a game I quite enjoy. Despite the goofy story, constant glitches, and lackluster factions, I still keep coming back to this game. Its satisfying action and sprawling world are too fun to ignore. I will gladly spend hours shooting raiders while exploring the Commonwealth, even if sometimes I touch the corner of a car and explode. But every time I come back to the game, there are some sets of quests that I am not always excited to come back to. Fallout 4's controversial DLCs. Now, don't get me wrong, they're not all bad, and even one of them I would call good, but I can't help but feel a bit begrudged having to do them just so that I can say I finished all the quests. Sometimes I wish I could just get them all over with, maybe just spending an hour or two on them and be done with it. But of course, these DLCs aren't designed to be beaten that quickly, unless we speedrun them. In this video, I will show you how we can beat all Fallout 4 DLCs in under an hour. And to accomplish this, we'll be using some game-breaking glitches and strategies. I am going by the rules for the all-story DLC speedrun on the official Speedrun.com page for Fallout 4. This speedrun includes the DLCs Far Harbor, Automatron, and Nuka-World. You might be wondering, what about the Vault-Tec Workshop and its quests? Well, that is technically a workshop DLC and not a story DLC, so sadly it won't be included. As well, I will be showing you a segmented all-DLC speedrun I created, meaning that this is not an actual valid speedrun done in one go, but my best attempts stitched together. Along the way, I will give my thoughts on both the speedrun and the DLC itself, and I do have some complaints about them. Alright, let's get into the Fallout 4 all DLC speedrun. We start with before the bombs have dropped in our bathroom, where we can create our character. This is John Fallout, and his only goal is to decimate Fallout 4 DLCs. He also needs 2,000 bottle caps to save the Mojave Desert. When we're done, we go through the entire intro sequence of the game. I won't go into too much detail because you've probably seen this intro a billion times, but the special stats we choose are 10 endurance, 10 agility, and 4 charisma. Endurance and agility for long distance running, and charisma for a difficult speech check we have to do later. When the bombs drop, we run towards the vault shelter, jumping over our neighbor's fence and skipping the dialogue of this guard for a bit of time save. As the nuclear fallout washes over us, we descend into the vault. In the vault, we exit the elevator, grab our vault suit, speak to the doctor, and hop into the cryo chamber, where we have to watch the 2-minute cutscene I'm sure you're more than familiar with. This will be the last time we ever see our wife and kid, because John Fallout only cares about one thing: downloadable content. When we escape from the cryo chamber, we're going to briefly run through the vault to grab a baton before turning around. Now, if you've seen Fallout 4 speedrunning, you'll know what's next, but if not, what we are about to do is a glitch called item climbing, which allows us to phase through ceilings to skip large portions of the game. In this instance, we're using it to go from the cryo chambers all the way to the vault door. By positioning this cone underneath us and backing into a corner, we fly up and right into this room. We then grab another cone and move towards the rad roaches near the Pip-Boy. However, we're not grabbing the Pip-Boy, but rather setting up another glitch called a punch warp. There's a lot that goes into this specific glitch, and I don't want to overwhelm you, so we'll talk about it later. Just know that it will allow us to save a ton of time in the future. We then hop to the left side of the vault door because we aren't even going to activate it. What we do instead is use a cone to item climb up this wall. We phase through the ceiling like before, hop from this wall to this column thing, jump to this spot, and then reach a ledge that is right above the vault door. We are almost out of the vault, but we use one more time-saving glitch to avoid the elevator ride. We jump from here to this very thin wall here. We sprint across it, fall into the void, turn around, quick save, and enter the loading screen for exiting the vault. The reasoning behind this glitch, called COC, meaning center of cell, is complicated. If you want a more technical explanation, I will link Tomatoanus' great video video about the meme category of sex percent in the description. He explains the glitch a lot better than I could, and honestly, I am not interested in why a glitch works as much as what it can do. And as you can see, the glitches in this game allow you to skip a lot. But you haven't seen nothing yet, because we are going to beat these DLCs at blistering speeds. You've likely been wondering, which DLC are we going to do first? Well, we are starting out with Far Harbor, in my experience the best DLC for Fallout 4. It's also my favorite DLC to speedrun, but first and foremost, we have to get to the Nakano residence. If you recall, the Nakano's daughter Kasumi recently disappeared. She had reason to believe she was actually a synth, and she fled to a synth refuge in Far Harbor called Acadia. On the way to the Nakano residence, we grab a few key items for the run, namely a Fat Man, a mini nuke, a fusion core, Day Tripper, a mine, and some weapons. Besides acquiring those items, there is not much to say about this section of the run. The Nakano residence is on the opposite side of the map from Vault 111, so it takes roughly 8 minutes to get there by foot. When we arrive, we go directly into the boathouse with the clues to Kasumi's disappearance. When we load Kasumi's holotape into our non-existent Pip-Boy, we actually quit to the main menu and then load back. This skips the need to listen to the holotape's audio, saving a bit of time. Before going into the house, we quick travel back to a location we ran by earlier, a junkyard. This is because near the junkyard is a suit of power armor, which will allow us to do a huge skip later in Far Harbor. We didn't get the power armor earlier because running in it is slower than running normally, so getting it right after grabbing Kasumi's tape works nicely. We travel back to the Nakano residence and speak to Kenji, Kasumi's father. Kenji tells us about the disappearance of his daughter, and we tell him that we already know where Kasumi has went, to Far Harbor. Although Kenji is dismayed that his daughter may be a synth, he asks us to investigate further and to bring his daughter back safely. We accept his offer and take a boat ride to Far Harbor. When we arrive to Far Harbor, we hear its leader, Captain Avery, as well as Alan Lee, a less than friendly resident of the harbor. They are quarreling about our arrival on the island, and we would chat, but this is a speedrun, so we sprint by them onto the docks. We exit our power armor suit here, as we'll need it for later, and favored a couple key items for the run, so that we won't have to enter our Pip-Boy too much. From there, we run all the way to Acadia, which takes a little over a minute. So, when I say speedrun the DLC, what exactly do I mean? Well, for each DLC, there is a final mission that, when concluded, is considered the end of that DLC. For Far Harbor, we need to do the quest Close to Home, which requires us to either convince Kasumi to stay in Acadia, or convince her to come back home, or kill her. As you might expect, the last and most violent option is the fastest. However, Kasumi is an essential character, meaning you can't kill her until a certain event occurs. This event is deciding the fate of Acadia, either trying to find a compromise between the three factions of the island, or convincing the residents of Far Harbor to attack Acadia. Once again, the second and most violent option is faster. So how do we get Far Harbor to attack Acadia? Well, we need to incite hostility towards the two factions, and the best way to do that is to tell Alan Lee that Avery was killed by Acadia's leader, Dima, and replaced by a synth. So we need to uncover Avery's body, which requires us to listen to Dima's confession, which we can only do if he gives us the holotape for the simulation, and we finally get to where we are right now, entering Acadia. When we enter, we meet Dima, the leader of the synth refuge. Dima welcomes us, and we explain our intentions to him. When that conversation is done, we run downstairs to reach Kasumi. She is working on something, but we interrupt her to explain that we were hired to investigate her disappearance. But Kasumi says she won't consider leaving until she uncovers the suspicious circumstances at Acadia. According to her, Dima may have something to do with the irradiating fog of the island, and that he has access to nuclear launch codes. Kasumi thinks Dima might be trying to wipe out life from the island and tasks us to find out more. From here, we have a couple options for getting this information. We can either eavesdrop on Dima, hack a terminal, or ask Dima directly by passing a charisma check. That last option is the fastest, so we take the Day Tripper we got earlier to increase our charisma and succeed at the charisma check. Dima tells us the truth, that he isn't considering detonating the island, but rather wants reconciliation between Far Harbor and the children of Adam. However, the children have Dima's earliest memories, which may contain something that could wipe out Far Harbor. Dima tasks us to get his memories back, which we oblige. We had to do all of that because without Dima's help, we wouldn't be able to access his memories. So we exit Acadia and head towards a cave. Kitteridge Pass specifically. Why? Because we're going to use it for another glitch that will save us time and hassle. I'll explain more about the glitch when we use it, but for now, just know that when we enter the cave, we make a save for later and head back outside. Now we are going to use that punch warp glitch I mentioned quite a while ago. If you recall, we set it up in the vault, and now we're finally using it. By going up to this turret and attacking it in vats with our baton, we are warped across the island to near the nucleus, the base of operations for the children of Adam. Like other glitches, I won't go into the technical aspects of it, but basically, when we use vats against the radroach earlier, the reason we didn't immediately teleport to it to kill it is because the game couldn't find a path to the radroach. This makes us go into a weird limbo state, and by canceling vats, we sort of save our position. So when we went into vats with the turret, the game was trying to send us all the way back to the vault. This confuses the game, and it instead sends us into this irradiated lake, which just so happens to be right next to the nucleus. We swim towards the base using a maneuver called Jesus walking to go faster and avoid radiation. Once we arrive, we actually turn and head in a different direction, this time towards another key location, the Vim Pop Factory. If you recall, this factory contains the remains of the real Avery, which we need to beat the DLC. We want to get these locations now since it'll make it easier to fast travel to them when needed. Once we get the location for our map, we fast travel back to Far Harbor because now we need to use our power armor for yet another glitch to skip a large amount of the game. Usually, to get to the terminal containing Dima's memories, you have to go through a whole sequence of getting on the Children of Adam's good side by tripping balls, getting the good grace of the Confessor, going through a long tunnel full of traps before finally getting to the terminal. Instead, we're going to use a glitch with power armor to get into Dima's memories early. First, we enter the nucleus, which is currently hostile to us. Before we get shot, we turn into a corner and while in third person, exit our power armor. We then quickly get back in it, which phases us halfway through the wall. We then phase through to the other side, falling into the void. Luckily for us, there just so happens to be solid ground beneath, and we run across it until we get under a certain room containing a door that goes directly to the terminal room. By falling out of the void while underneath the room, the game forces us all the way back up, which situates us in the ordinarily inaccessible area. Once inside, we hastily equip our Fat Man and eliminate the Assaultron that would otherwise block our way. We then use a terminal to get inside the room containing Dima's memories. We head to the back of the room first, where we have to turn on a switch to activate the terminal. However, this also activates a deadly Assaultron, so we quickly run back to the terminal before it attacks us and enter Dima's memories. The simulation is definitely one of Far Harbor's most contentious sections, many finding it the worst section of the entire DLC, and I have to agree. The idea works in theory, but having to slowly move blocks and tediously watching the bugs amble along is frustrating the first time you go through Far Harbor, and every subsequent playthrough is even worse as you already know the answers and you just have to do it all again. Well, you will be happy to know that you technically only need to do the first level, given if all you want to learn is that Dima killed Avery and don't care about getting the nuclear launch keys or wind farm kill switch codes. As for our strategy for the speedrun, we simply start by moving the minimal amount of blocks needed for the bugs to cross and break down the barriers. Then it's simply building the turrets in good spots and spending the rest of the time filling in the bridges. Unfortunately, this section is more or less just RNG because of the bug's aforementioned terrible AI. When we do finally finish the first level, we immediately exit the simulation and quick save before going back to the save we made in the cave. Why would we want to go back to before we got Dima's memories? Well, because we are now going to use that glitch I mentioned earlier to leave the nucleus early. You may have noticed that in Fallout 4, when you leave areas like Diamond City for example, that there's this fade out before you leave the area entirely. Well, if you quick load a quick save as your screen is fading, you will still reach the other side, but with the same items, levels, quests, and whatever else you had in the quick save. So you can effectively exit exit indoor areas anytime you want as long as you quick save right before. As you can imagine, this saves a ton of time. When we are outside the cave, we destroy the turret shooting at us before fast traveling to the Vim Pop factory, where Avery's body is. We need to get evidence for Alan Lee so that we can incite Far Harbor to attack Acadia. But to get to Avery's body, we need to go through this super mutant infested building. When we get inside, we just maneuver around super mutants and hounds to make a beeline for Avery. This isn't usually too difficult as the enemies take a moment to begin attacking us, though you can easily lose time here if you're not careful. We then actually drop our pistol on the ground and carry it with us. This is because we're going to use it to item climb just like we did with the cone in the vault. And this could be a pretty stressful section of the run because we're going to be getting chased by both super mutants and mole rats as we make our way to an exit door. When we finally get to it, however, it is locked behind a terminal. Usually you would need to hack to get inside, but by using the pistol, we can climb up the wall and right to the other side. We then go into the elevator to reach Avery's body. When the elevator doors open, we jump from the stairs to the grave containing the corpse of Captain Avery, and after uncovering her body, we grab her skull, locket, and a holotape of Dima's confession to murdering Avery. We use the same glitch with the cave as before, and when we get out, we fast travel to Far Harbor. We talk to Alan Lee and show him the skull, but he doesn't fully believe us yet. Lee has us walk to Far Harbor's resident doctor, Teddy. When we get to him, we first shoot the good doctor to skip his first bit of dialogue, then ask him to examine the skull. After a fade out, Teddy reveals that the skull is in fact Avery's, and tells us that whatever we do not tell Alan Lee. We then reveal the truth to Alan Lee, who is filled with rage. He rounds up everyone on the docks, and as he does that, we actually run into a nearby tavern. By entering and exiting this tavern, we skip waiting for all the residents to get into place for Synth Avery's trial. This trial usually involves you either convincing Lee to kill or spare Synth Avery. What you can also do, though, is kill Avery yourself. This makes all the Far Harbor residents hostile to you, so we briskly quick travel to Acadia to finish the job. We could sit and watch as Acadia is destroyed by the mob, but for the speedrun we have to kill Kasumi with our own hands. When we get to her, we simply shoot Kasumi until she dies, then use the cave to get out once more. The quest is almost done, but we still have 2 more things left to do. First, we quick travel back to Far Harbor, because before going back to the Commonwealth, we need to set up yet another punch warp. This time, we use a broken down vehicle to block our path and bats. We perform the setup for the punch warp by using a fragmentation mine, and then leave Far Harbor for good. When we arrive back in the Commonwealth, we make our way towards the Nakano residence to inform Kenji about the fate of his daughter. This is kind of messed up, because there's no way to inform Kenji that we killed Kasumi ourselves. You can only say that either Far Harbor or Acadia killed her. So yeah, you can only lie to Kenji in this instance. In any case, he is distraught, and that is the end of the Far Harbor DLC. Before leaving the Nakanos, we use Kenji to execute our punch warp, hitting him with the baton and flinging us all the way out to sea. We then use quick travel to return to dry land, loading into Gibson Point Pier, a location that was discovered as we were warping. We then once again have to go through a prolonged section of running, this time heading towards the Robco Sales and Service Center, where Automatron's Mechanist is stationed. That's right, the next DLC is Automatron, and we're going straight to the boss fight. No other quests required. Before entering Robco, however, we actually make a quick stop at East Boston Preparatory School. This is because the school has a mini nuke that is going to be very helpful for the Automatron fight. When we enter the school, we rush up the stairs, but they are broken. Ordinarily, you'd have to fight through raiders to reach the mini nuke, but we just grab this object and item climb our way to the top. We then brush through the raiders trying to kill us, grab the mini nuke, and run back to the entrance. Trust me, this stop is worth it, as we are going to get a lot of mileage out of this one mini nuke. When we leave, we round the corner and continue heading to Robco. The way we're going to get into the Mechanist lair without doing any of the first quests is by using yet another punch warp. When we enter the building, we go all the way back to the save we made in Vault 111 nearly half an hour ago. Luckily for speedrunners, punch warps work across saves, so you can set them up at any time. We get to the top of these boxes and use the rad roach to set the trick up. We then reload our save at Robco, and when we load in, we use a mine once again to execute the punch warp, and this warps us right above the Mechanist lair, in the void. Curiously, right above the Mechanist lair is water to swim in. Neat. We swim forward a bit and fall through a ceiling. We have now entered the Mechanist domain, and the first thing we need to do is get the lights on. You're obviously not meant to get into this area from the ceiling, so we need to go over here to activate the lights first. And now we are going to be using yet another new glitch, this time to duplicate mini nukes infinitely by reloading the Fat Man, canceling in the middle of the animation, and then quickly placing the mini nuke in a box. Our Fat Man will have one mini nuke, and the box will also have a mini nuke inside of it. I know it looks like I have 999 more mini nukes, but that's just a visual bug. We use this mini nuke to destroy the first wave of robots and do the trick over and over until the end of the fight. Having infinite mini nukes does speed up the process a lot, but it still takes 5 more minutes to defeat the Mechanist. While you're watching me fight the Mechanist legions of robots, I will give a quick review of both Far Harbor and Automatron. To me, Far Harbor is definitely the best DLC. It's got a great story, better than the main game honestly, meaningful choices, a great world to explore, and introduces some really cool new enemies. It even has a whole robot murder mystery side quest. What more could you want? Well, I'm not really a big fan of Longfellow as a companion. Sorry, he's just kind of boring to me. And like I said with the simulation, there really should be a way to skip it for anyone who doesn't want to do it over and over again. As well, I never really cared for the children of Adam. They just come off as one note, and it's difficult to side with them. But overall, I really enjoyed Far Harbor, and it's the only DLC I'm ever excited to redo if I'm being honest. Automatron on the other hand, while not bad, is just not interesting in any aspect to me. I actually like the final boss fight with the Mechanist, but the quest before it, the ability to make robots, Ada as a companion, yeah, not my thing. Not to mention it gets tiring just killing robots over and over, and I don't find the Mechanist a captivating antagonist. Overall, Automatron is harmless, but uninteresting to me. As we destroy the final wave of robots, the building's power reaches a critical failure. When all their lights go out, the Mechanist decides to finally hear us out. We convince the Mechanist to come out of their safety, saying that they should fight us themselves. They agree to the challenge, and as soon as they exit, we blast them with our Fat Man, instantly killing them. We loot the Mechanist's body and go to her terminal, where we take control of the layer ourselves and end the Automatron DLC. To make a swift exit, we quick save and use the cave again. From there, we go back to the Commonwealth and quick travel to Sanctuary, where we will make our way towards the final DLC, Nuka-World. However, we don't go straight for Nuka-World Transit Center just yet. We need 2 things before we can head there: a set of power armor and yet another setup for a punch warp. Luckily for us, there is power armor at a location called the Federal Ration Center, a raider camp on the way to Nuka-World. This is going to take a few minutes to set up, but it does save a substantial amount of time. The power armor will allow us to get into Nuka-World without having to activate the train, using the same power armor glitch as before, and the punch warp setup will allow us to go from the bottom of Nuka-World all the way to the power plant where the DLC will end. Speaking of, what is the fastest way to end the Nuka-World DLC? Well, as you're likely able to guess, like the other DLCs, we are using the most violent route. For this speedrun, we need to kill the leaders of the 3 raider gangs: the Pack and its leader Mason, the Disciples and its leader Nisha, and the Operators with its twin leaders of Mags and William Black. Seems easy enough, but these leaders are tougher than you may think. One mini nuke is not going to cut it. In fact, 2 mini nukes isn't going to cut it, and we can't easily hide in a corner like an Automatron. These areas are swarmed with enemies who will shred through us in seconds. You have to remember that we're only at level 7, so how in the world are we going to defeat these leaders in a timely manner? Well, we'll get to that. For now, we are on our way to setting up the punch warp. We're setting it up right here, but we're not using it until the end of the run, so for now, we're just creating a save to use for later. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would greatly appreciate a like. It helps to promote my channel and allows me to make more niche speedrunning content. We make the save and quick travel back to the raider camp with the power armor. This power armor is actually a little tricky to get. You don't want to alert the raiders, otherwise one of them might hop into the power armor before you can get to it. We get to the armor in time and are now on our way to the transit center to enter Nuka-World. In terms of my own thoughts on Nuka-World, it is unfortunately the DLC I dread going going through the most. I really like its world. It is fun to run across the amusement park, doing all these oddball quests, but I think the idea of allowing you to become a raider is flawed. You either have to side with the raiders, or just kill them, and to me, neither option is satisfying. I don't usually create evil characters in Fallout 4, so I either have to make a whole new character, or do something that my character would never do, just to do the fun quests of the DLC. I wish there was a bigger anti-raider faction, and that you could choose to either do side quests for them, or the raiders. None of them have interesting characters, or motivations. They're either bloodthirsty, or greedy. There's some to like about Nuka-World, but overall, I'd rather just free the slaves and traverse the amusement park without the raiders. We make it to the transit center and ignore Harvey. Instead, what we do is go to this wired fence, get out of our power armor, quickly get back in, and boom, we are on our way to Nuka-World. We simply run to the end of this tunnel and enter the load zone. On the other side, we go back to the Vault 111 save to set up another punch warp. This one is going to send us from the Nuka station to Nuka Town, USA. When we load back into our current save, we use a frag grenade to execute the punch warp. Interestingly enough, this doesn't have us in a loading screen, but rather a weird limbo state, where we're not quite loaded into the world, and we can see the environment in low resolution. But after taking a few steps, we do get a loading screen as the game tries to catch up. Fallout 4 is not exactly built for you traveling thousands of feet in an instant. When the world actually loads in, we make our way towards the Nuka Town market, which has many items of interest to us, namely grenades, a mini nuke, jet, psycho, med-X, buff out, and health items. I wasn't kidding when I said that defeating the 3 raider gang leaders was going to be difficult. We need all the chems, explosives, and health we can get to kill them. If you're wondering why no one in the market is moving around or saying anything, they are in a strange limbo state as well. Because we skipped over so many quests and events, the AI in the market and outside of Nuka Town are stuck in a static state. When we get all the items we need, we set up, say it with me, another punch warp. Okay, I know you're tired of me saying that, but I promise this is the second to last one. When that's done, we then quick travel to the parlor, the base for the first raider gang we're attacking, the operators. Before anything else, we use the same trick as an automatron to have infinite mini nukes. We'll move them into this trash can so that we can grab them later when we exit. Although the raiders outside won't attack us, enemies inside are still very active, so we need to get in and out of here quickly. Before going inside, we also finally use our level ups to get some perks, something we haven't done since Far Harbor. We use all but one on increasing our perception, and the final one we use for Demolition Expert, which gives our explosives a 25% increase in damage. We then enter the building. Inside, we rush towards the twin leaders Mags and William Black. We take Jet to slow down time and Psycho for a 25% increase in damage. We throw 2 grenades and then obliterate them with a mini nuke. Every aspect to this setup, the perks, the chems, the grenades, all of it was crucial to kill these two. Once outside, we get back our mini nukes from the trash can and head towards Fizz Top Mountain, the base of the Disciples. Just like at the parlor, we're going to be duplicating our mini nuke so that we'll have 1 for Nisha and 2 for Mason. Honestly, I have no idea what this speedrun would look like if you couldn't duplicate mini nukes, but it would definitely be significantly longer than an hour. In any case, we take our jet, throw 1 grenade at Nisha, and launch our Fat Man, vaporizing the Disciples leader. When that's done, we get our mini nukes back from the trash can and execute the punch warp we set up in the market with this raider. This lands us near the market and the Bradburn Amphitheater, which is the base for the pack, the final raider gang we need to destroy. Out of the 3 gangs, the pack are the most difficult. This is because they are in an inside area, but unlike the operators, the pack are already aggroed towards us since we killed the other gangs. As soon as we enter the amphitheater, we are going to have dozens of bullets flying into us, so we take a med-X for plus 25% damage resistance, a buff out for increased endurance, and 2 stim packs. To make this fight even more difficult, Mason is on the other side of the area, meaning we have to be very accurate with our mini nuke. We shoot our Fat Man and have to hope it hits Mason. We run towards him, reloading our Fat Man along the way. When we reach him, he is at a quarter of health, so we launch our last mini nuke to annihilate him. When that is done, we make a brisk exit, running away from the remaining raiders attempting to finish us off. Outside the amphitheater, we run back into the market because we require one more action to be able to finish the DLC. When all the raider gangs are defeated, you have to free the slaves before you can take control of Nuka-World. Before freeing them, you have to kill any enemies nearby. Luckily, they can't fight back. It's nice that for at least one of these DLCs, you do what most would call the moral option. After talking to Mackenzie, we finally go back to the save we made in the Commonwealth for the punch warp. We throw a grenade in the air, set up the glitch, and load back into Nuka-World. We exit the market and use another raider to execute the punch warp, which as I said before, brings you all the way to the Nuka-World power plant. When we load in, we run away from a handful of Yaoguai to a specific section of the building's wall. Usually, you need to go through the building itself to get to the final button to end the DLC, but in this case, we're going to be using an item climb with the Mechanist armor to reach the top. We place the clothing beneath us and back into the wall, flying us up against the building's exterior. When we reach the top, it's a simple sprint towards the button that activates the power to Nuka-World. We press the button, engulfing the theme park in light and causing fireworks to erupt. We have taken control of Nuka-World, marking the end of the speedrun. We have now beaten Fallout 4's 3 DLCs in under an hour. Far Harbor in about 15 minutes, Automatron in about 10 minutes, and Nuka-World in 12 minutes. Together, including the intro, the speedrun comes out to be 53 minutes and 58 seconds. Again, I'd like to stress that this is not a real run, but rather an example of what an average run may look like. The real-world record is held by Elongated Musket Gun with a time of 54 minutes and 15 seconds. So, that was the Fallout 4 all DLC speedrun. Although I usually like to claim a world record for these videos, I gotta be honest, this one was tough. My best time for this category is 1 hour and 38 seconds, and I intend to improve on that sometime. I want to like this speedrun, but it does have a couple issues. The biggest hurdle for me was the fact that punch warps just sometimes crash your game. Obviously a huge time loss, and just a crappy way to lose a run. As well, some of these DLCs, especially Automatron, just broke sometimes. For example, twice did I lose a run in Automatron because one of the robots got stuck under the floor. Classic Bethesda. But if you can stomach these issues, the speedrun can be a fun romp through Fallout's flawed DLC. Comment down below which Fallout 4 DLC you enjoy or hate the most. I know that some people out there have Nuka-World as their favorite, and if that's you, I'd like to know why. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next speedrun.